My wife got a promotion last month. Funny thing about promotions, they come with new responsibilities, longer hours, and apparently a whole new wardrobe that costs more than my truck payment. What they don't mention in the employee handbook is how they also come with hotel receipts and the sudden need for perfume at 7 in the morning. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm Colin Rourke, 39 years old, and I've been wiring houses and fixing electrical problems in this godforsaken Maine coastal town for 15 years. My hands are permanently stained with wire grease, my back aches from crawling through attics, and my wife Nora thinks I'm too stupid to notice when she's lying to my face. She's wrong about that last part. It started 3 weeks ago. I was in my workshop, the garage converted into my sanctuary of tools, spare wire, and the occasional beer, when Nora came home at midnight claiming she'd been in a budget meeting. Her lipstick was gone, her hair looked like she'd been running her fingers through it, and she smelled like expensive cologne. Not the cheap stuff I wear on Sundays. "How was the meeting?" I asked, not looking up from the junction box I was rewiring. "Exhausting. Darren had us going through quarterly projections until our eyes bled." She kicked off her heels with more force than necessary. "I'm going to shower." Darren, her new boss, 6'2", drives a Tesla, went to Harvard, and apparently holds a lot of late-night meetings that require my wife to dress like she's going to a cocktail party. I heard the shower start upstairs and walked to her purse, sitting on the kitchen counter like a leather landmine. Credit card receipt from the Ocean View Hotel, room service for 2, champagne. That's when I stopped being just a husband and started being an electrician with a grudge. The next morning, Nora was already gone when I woke up. Coffee pot was cold, no note, just the lingering scent of her new perfume, and the sound of my neighbor Mrs. Donnelly's lawnmower at 6:30 in the morning. I stumbled outside to grab the paper, and she waved me over with the enthusiasm of someone who'd been waiting hours for an audience. "Colin, dear, I hope you don't mind me asking, but has Nora been having car trouble?" Mrs. Donnelly was 73, widowed, and had the investigative instincts of a private detective with too much time on her hands. Her kitchen window faced our driveway, and she treated it like a command center. "Not that I know of. Why?" "Well, it's just that there's been a silver car picking her up the last few mornings. Nice car. Expensive looking. I thought maybe hers was in the shop." "A Tesla is silver. Expensive. And Darren drives one." "Probably just carpooling," I said, but my stomach was already twisting into knots. "Oh, of course. Very environmentally conscious of her. Though I did notice she didn't come home until quite late last night. I was up with my arthritis, you understand, and I saw the headlights in your driveway around midnight." I thanked Mrs. Donnelly and walked back inside, my mind racing. Nora's car was in the driveway. Had been all night, so how did she get to this mysterious late meeting? I called her office at 10. "Nora Rourke's line, this is Jennifer." "Hi, Jennifer, this is Colin, Nora's husband. Is she available?" "Oh, hi, Mr. Rourke, I'm sorry, but Nora's in meetings all morning. Can I take a message?" "Sure. Just tell her I called about dinner tonight." "Will do." I hung up and immediately called back, disguising my voice slightly. "Financial Solutions Group. How may I direct your call?" "Darren Keaton's office, please." "I'm sorry, Mr. Keaton is out of the office today. He's at the Portland conference through Friday. Can someone else help you?" Portland conference. Today was Wednesday. If Darren was in Portland and Nora was supposedly in meetings all morning, then who was she really with? I spent the rest of the day rewiring a kitchen in the Riverside neighborhood, but my mind wasn't on the work. Every time I stripped a wire or connected a switch, I was thinking about stripped lies and disconnected trust. By 5 o'clock, I had a plan. That evening, I was waiting in the kitchen when Nora came home. She looked surprised to see me sitting at the table with a beer and a smile. "You're home early," she said, dropping her purse and jacket on the counter. "Finished the Morrison job ahead of schedule. Thought we could have dinner together for once." She hesitated, and I caught the micro-expression of annoyance that flashed across her face before she recovered. "That sounds nice, but I have to go back out tonight. Big presentation tomorrow, and Darren wants the team to rehearse one more time." "Darren's back from Portland already?" "That was a quick conference." The color drained from her face. Just for a second, but I saw it. "Portland? No, The conference was canceled. Last-minute thing." She turned away, busying herself with getting a glass of water. "Very disappointing. He was looking forward to it." I nodded and took a long pull from my beer. "Well, that's too bad. What time do you think you'll be home?" "Late. Don't wait up." She disappeared upstairs to change, and I sat there feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. It wasn't just anger, though there was plenty of that. It was the crystalline clarity that comes when you finally stop making excuses for someone and start seeing them for who they really are. Nora came back down wearing a black dress I'd never seen before and heels that cost more than I made in a week. For a presentation rehearsal. "Right." "You look nice," I said. "Thanks." She kissed my cheek, a quick peck that felt like a business transaction. "I'll see you in the morning." I waited until her car was out of the driveway, then grabbed my keys and followed. The Ocean View Hotel sits on the bluff overlooking Casco Bay, all glass and steel and pretension. It's the kind of place where they charge $20 for a hamburger, and the valet looks at my pickup truck like it might be contagious. I parked across the street and watched the entrance. Nora's car was in the lot. So was a silver Tesla. I sat there for 2 hours watching well-dressed people come and go, feeling like a private investigator in a bad movie. Around 9:30, I saw them through the lobby windows. Nora and a tall man with dark hair, sitting at the bar with drinks and body language that had nothing to do with quarterly projections and everything to do with the way his hand kept finding excuses to touch her arm. I took pictures with my phone. Not great quality, but clear enough to see my wife leaning into another man, laughing at something he whispered in her ear, her hand resting on his thigh. They went upstairs at 10:15. I drove home and sat in my workshop until 3 in the morning, staring at those photos and feeling something fundamental break inside me. Not just my heart, though that was definitely shattered, but my faith in the life I thought I'd been living. 15 years of marriage, and I'd been nothing more than the reliable husband who paid the mortgage while she played house with Harvard boy. But here's the thing about being an electrician. You learn to think systematically. When a circuit fails, you don't just get angry and start ripping out wires. You trace the problem back to its source, you identify every component that's been compromised, and then you fix it properly. My marriage was a failed circuit. Time to do some rewiring. The next morning, I was at McCarthy's Tavern by 7, nursing a coffee and waiting for the breakfast crowd. McCarthy's was the kind of place where the working class gathered to complain about their lives and share gossip. If there was information to be had about Nora's extracurricular activities, this was where I'd find it. Big Mike Patterson was already at the bar, working on his second cup of coffee and a plate of eggs that could feed a small family. Mike was my age, built like a linebacker, and had been my best friend since high school. He also worked security at the office complex where Nora's company was located. "You look like hell, Colin," he said as I sat down next to him. "Thanks. You always know just what to say." "Seriously, what's eating you? You've got that look you used to get right before you'd do something spectacularly stupid in high school." I stared into my coffee cup, debating how much to tell him. Mike was loyal to a fault, but he was also the kind of guy who thought problems should be solved with direct confrontation and possibly violence. I needed subtlety. "Hypothetically," I said, "if someone you knew was being cheated on, would you tell them?" "Hypothetically? Hell yes. Life's too short to live a lie." He paused, studying my face. "We still talking hypothetically here?" For now. Okay, well, hypothetically, if someone was cheating, they'd probably be pretty sloppy about it. People in love or lust tend to think they're invisible. They get careless. What kind of careless? The kind where they have loud conversations in parking garages thinking nobody's listening. The kind where they use company resources for personal business. The kind where they forget that security cameras exist. I looked up at him. You've seen something. Mike sighed and pushed his eggs around on his plate. I've seen your wife and some suit having what looked like very personal conversations in the parking garage. Multiple times. And before you ask, yes, I've got access to the security footage if you want it. The cold, hard thing in my chest grew larger. I want it. Colin, are you sure about this? Once you see it, you can't unsee it. I'm already living it, Mike. I just want to know how bad it is. He nodded slowly. Okay, but when you're ready to do something about it, you come to me first. Don't go off half-cocked and do something that'll land you in jail. I'm not going to do anything illegal. Good, but there's a difference between legal and stupid, and you've never been great at seeing that line. I spent the rest of the day thinking about lines, the ones I'd already crossed by following my wife, the ones she'd crossed by betraying our marriage, and the ones I was about to cross in the name of justice. By evening, I had the beginnings of a plan. It started with money. I went to the bank and opened a new account, transferring half of our joint savings and redirecting my paycheck. If Nora wanted to play games, she was going to learn that games have consequences. Next, I changed the passwords on all our shared accounts, Netflix, Amazon, the works. Small things, but they would add up to a pattern of inconvenience that would slowly drive her crazy. Then I bought a GPS tracker on Amazon and installed it in her car while she was at work. If she was going to sneak around, I was going to know exactly where she was sneaking. Finally, I called a lawyer, not to file for divorce, not yet, but to understand my options and make sure I was protecting myself legally. Mr. Rourke, the lawyer said, Maine is a no-fault divorce state, which means adultery won't necessarily affect the division of assets. However, if you can prove that marital funds were used to support the affair, that could be relevant. Hotel rooms, dinners, gifts, that sort of thing? Exactly. I'd recommend documenting everything. Receipts, photos, communications. Build a comprehensive record. I was building more than a record. I was building a case for the complete and total destruction of Nora's comfortable little world. That night she came home at midnight again, full of stories about budget reviews and client presentations. I nodded and smiled and played the part of the oblivious husband while inside, I was cataloging every lie, every deception, every moment of casual cruelty. She had no idea that the man she'd been taking for granted was about to become her worst nightmare. The security footage Mike showed me was worse than I'd imagined, not just because of what it showed. My wife pressed against the side of a Tesla while Darren Keaton's hands roamed places that belonged to me, but because of when it was recorded. 3 months ago. This wasn't a new affair. It was an established relationship that had been happening right under my nose. There's more, Mike said, fast-forwarding through the footage. Look at this. The timestamp showed 2 weeks ago. Nora and Darren in the parking garage again, but this time they were arguing. Her body language was aggressive, pointing at him, stepping into his personal space. His was defensive, hands up, backing away. Can you read lips? I asked. No, but I know a woman laying down the law when I see one. My guess? She was pushing him to make some kind of decision. Like leaving his wife. Or maybe she was getting impatient with the sneaking around. Either way, it meant the affair was getting complicated, which meant they were both getting sloppy. I spent the next week documenting everything. The GPS tracker showed regular trips to the Ocean View Hotel, a downtown apartment complex I didn't recognize, and several restaurants that definitely weren't hosting budget meetings. I started taking photos of credit card statements before Nora could hide them, noting charges for lingerie stores, expensive dinners, and hotel rooms. But documentation was just the foundation. What I really needed was intelligence, and for that, I needed to infiltrate Nora's social circle. Sheila Morrison worked in Nora's department and had a reputation for knowing everyone's business. She was also married to Tom Morrison, whose kitchen I'd rewired the previous month. Time to make a house call. "Colin, what brings you by?" Tom answered the door with a beer in his hand and a football game on the TV behind him. "Just wanted to check on the electrical work, make sure everything's still running smooth." "Perfect timing. Sheila's been complaining that the outlet in the master bedroom is acting up. Come on in." The outlet was fine, just needed the reset button pushed, but it gave me an excuse to chat with Sheila while I pretended to investigate the problem. "How's Nora doing with her new position?" I asked casually. "She's been working such long hours lately." Sheila's expression shifted slightly, and I caught something that looked like discomfort. "Oh, you know how it is with promotions. Lots of pressure to prove yourself." "Yeah, especially working so closely with her new boss. Darren, right?" "Darren Keaton." The way she said his name had an edge to it. "He's certainly demanding." "Demanding how?" She glanced toward the hallway, making sure Tom wasn't listening. "Look, Colin, I probably shouldn't say anything, but there's been talk around the office about Nora and Darren spending a lot of time together. Private meetings, business trips, that sort of thing." Business trips. This was news to me. Last month they went to Boston together for a client presentation, stayed overnight, and there was that conference in Portland that got canceled at the last minute, but they still took the day off together. The Portland conference, the one that Nora said was canceled but that she and Darren apparently spent together anyway. "I'm sure it's just business," I said, testing her reaction. Sheila's laugh was bitter. "Honey, I've been in corporate America for 20 years. I know the difference between business and monkey business, and what those two are doing isn't about quarterly reports." "What kind of talk is going around the office?" "The kind that makes HR nervous. Lisa Chen in Human Resources has been asking a lot of questions about their travel expenses and meeting schedules. Word is she's building a file." This was perfect. If HR was already suspicious, I wouldn't have to work very hard to push them over the edge. "Well," I said, packing up my tools, "I'm sure Nora knows what she's doing." "I hope so, Colin. I really do. Because if this blows up, it's going to be ugly for everyone involved." That night, I did some research on Lisa Chen. Harvard MBA, 15 years in corporate human resources, and a reputation for being absolutely ruthless when it came to policy violations. She'd fired 3 executives in the past 2 years for various ethical breaches, and according to the company website, she took a special interest in maintaining professional standards and workplace integrity. I crafted an anonymous email, attaching the parking garage photos and a detailed timeline of Nora and Darren's activities. I didn't make any accusations, just presented the information and let Lisa draw her own conclusions. The email was sent from a burner account at 3 a.m., untraceable back to me. 2 days later, Nora came home in a foul mood. "How was work?" I asked innocently. "Terrible." Lisa Chen called me into her office for some ridiculous meeting about professional conduct guidelines. Apparently someone's been spreading rumors about inappropriate workplace relationships. That sounds serious. It's bullshit is what it is. Just because I work closely with my supervisor doesn't mean anything unprofessional is happening. She was lying with such conviction that I almost admired her commitment to the performance. Did she say who was spreading rumors? No, but I have my suspicions. There are people in that office who can't stand to see a woman succeed. They'll do anything to tear you down. The irony was beautiful. Nora was so convinced of her own victimhood that she couldn't see how her own actions had created the situation. But Lisa Chen was just the beginning. I had bigger plans in motion. I'd been monitoring Darren's social media accounts, and I discovered something interesting. He was married. Not just married, but married to a woman named Patricia, who posted frequently about their perfect life together. Photos of romantic dinners, weekend getaways, and anniversary celebrations filled her Instagram feed. Patricia Keaton had no idea her husband was having an affair, but she was about to find out. I created another anonymous account and sent her a simple message. Your husband is having an affair with a coworker named Nora Rourke. I thought you should know. I included one of the parking garage photos. Nothing explicit, but clearly intimate. The response came within an hour. Who is this? How do you know this? I didn't reply. Let her imagination fill in the blanks. Let her start asking questions and looking for answers. Let her turn into the same kind of detective I'd become. Within a week, the pressure was building from multiple directions. Lisa Chen was conducting a formal investigation into workplace conduct violations. Patricia Keaton was demanding answers from her husband, and I was sitting back, watching it all unfold with the satisfaction of an electrician who'd successfully rewired a complex system. But the best part was still to come. Nora's friends were starting to distance themselves. The invitations to girls' nights out stopped coming. The casual workplace friendships grew cold. She was becoming isolated, paranoid, and desperate. I think someone at work is trying to sabotage me, she told me one evening, pacing around the kitchen like a caged animal. Why would anyone do that? Jealousy, politics, who knows? But someone's been spreading lies about me and Darren, and it's affecting my reputation. What kind of lies? She stopped pacing and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before, calculating, almost predatory. The kind that could destroy a career if people believe them. Well, I said, taking a sip of my beer, I guess you'll just have to prove them wrong. She stared at me for a long moment, and I wondered if she was finally starting to suspect that her loyal, oblivious husband might not be as stupid as she'd assumed. But it was too late for suspicion. The wheels were already in motion, and Nora was about to learn that when you betray someone who understands how systems work, they don't just get mad, they get systematic. The call came on a Thursday morning while I was installing new outlets in a dental office downtown. Mike's voice was tight with barely controlled anger. Colin, you need to get down to McCarthy's, now. What's wrong? Just get here, and bring your sense of humor because you're going to need it. I found Mike at our usual table in the back, along with 3 other guys I'd known since high school, Danny Sullivan, Pete Rodriguez, and Mark Chen. They all looked like they'd rather be anywhere else in the world. Sit down, Mike said. I sat, looking around the table at faces that had once been friendly and were now carefully neutral. We need to talk, Danny said. He was a plumber, worked construction with most of the same crews I did. About Nora. What about her? About what you're doing to her. The words hit me like a slap. Excuse me? Pete leaned forward. Come on, Colin. We know it's you. The anonymous tips to HR, the private investigator stuff, following her around. It's gone too far. I don't know what you're talking about. Bullshit. Mark's voice was cold. Sheila Morrison told her husband that you were asking weird questions about Nora's work schedule. Tom told Danny. Danny told us. We put 2 and 2 together. I looked at Mike, hoping for support, but his expression was unreadable. Look, Danny continued, we get it. Marriage is hard. Sometimes people grow apart, but destroying your wife's career because you're having problems at home? That's not the Colin we know. You think I'm destroying her career? Aren't you? Pete's voice was rising. Anonymous complaints to HR? Spreading rumors about her and her boss? What's next, Colin? You going to start following her around with a camera? The irony was so thick I could taste it. These men, my friends, were defending the woman who had been systematically betraying me for months, and they were treating me like the villain. Has it occurred to any of you that maybe Nora isn't the victim here? What's that supposed to mean? Mark demanded. I pulled out my phone and showed them one of the parking garage photos. It means your victim has been screwing her boss for 3 months. The silence that followed was deafening. Danny stared at the photo, his face cycling through confusion, recognition, and something that might have been embarrassment. "Jesus, Colin," Pete whispered. "Yeah, Jesus, Colin. Jesus, Colin, for being stupid enough to trust his wife. Jesus, Colin, for trying to document what was happening instead of just taking it like a good little cuckold." Mike finally spoke. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because I knew this would happen. I knew you'd find a way to make it my fault." "That's not," Danny started. "Isn't it? You just spent 10 minutes lecturing me about destroying Nora's career. Did any of you consider that maybe she destroyed it herself when she decided to use company resources to have an affair with her married supervisor?" Mark was still staring at the photo. "How long have you known?" "Officially, 3 weeks. Unofficially, I've been suspicious for months." "And you didn't think to talk to us about it?" "Talk to you about what? About how my wife thinks I'm too stupid to notice when she's lying? About how she comes home smelling like another man's cologne and expects me to smile and ask about her day? About how she's been spending our money on hotel rooms and lingerie for her boyfriend?" The anger I'd been suppressing for weeks was finally breaking through, and it felt like a dam bursting. I spent 15 years being the reliable husband, the guy who fixed things and paid bills and never complained when she worked late or went out with friends or needed space, and the whole time she was laughing at me behind my back. "Colin," Mike tried to interrupt. "No. You wanted to have this conversation, so let's have it. You want to know what I'm doing to Nora? I'm giving her exactly what she deserves. She wanted to play games, so now we're playing games. She wanted to lie and cheat and manipulate, so now she gets to find out what it feels like to have someone smarter than her doing the same thing." Danny was shaking his head. "This isn't you, man. This isn't who you are." "You're right. The Colin you knew was a sucker. He was a mark. He was the kind of guy who'd work 60-hour weeks so his wife could afford to dress up for another man. But that Colin is gone." I stood up, looking down at the 4 men who had been my closest friends. "And apparently, so is our friendship." Pete stood too. "It doesn't have to be this way." "Yes, it does. Because you've already chosen sides. You came here to defend her without even knowing the facts. You were ready to believe that I was the problem, that I was the one causing trouble in paradise." "We were trying to help," Mark said. "No, you were trying to fix something that you didn't understand. Just like always. Just like when we were kids and you'd try to talk me out of fighting the bullies instead of helping me stand up to them." "That's not fair," Danny said. "Fair?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been Nora telling me she was unhappy instead of sneaking around behind my back. Fair would have been you guys asking me what was wrong instead of assuming I was the problem. Fair would have been a lot of things that didn't happen." I headed for the door, then turned back. "You want to be friends with Nora? Go ahead, but don't expect me to pretend that what she did was okay just to make you comfortable." Mike called after me. "Colin, wait!" But I was done waiting, done explaining, done trying to make other people understand what it felt like to have your entire life revealed as a lie. I walked out of McCarthy's and knew I was walking away from more than just a conversation. I was walking away from friendships that had lasted 20 years, from a social circle that had been part of my identity since high school. But here's the thing about burning bridges. Sometimes, it's the only way to make sure you can't go back to a place that was never really home. That night, I sat in my workshop and planned the final phase of my revenge. No more anonymous tips or subtle manipulations. It was time for the nuclear option. Time for everyone in town to see exactly who Nora really was. The Ocean View Hotel's security system was installed by Morrison Electric, Tom Morrison's company. Tom and I had worked together on dozens of jobs over the years, and I knew their systems inside and out. More importantly, I knew that their surveillance footage was stored on a server that could be accessed remotely by anyone with the right credentials. I didn't hack the system. That would have been illegal. but I did call Tom and explain that I needed to review some footage for a personal matter involving my wife's safety. He gave me temporary access, no questions asked. What I found was 3 months of evidence documenting Nora and Darren's affair in excruciating detail. Hotel arrivals and departures, intimate conversations in the lobby, and enough footage to prove beyond any doubt that this was an ongoing relationship, not a series of innocent business meetings. I downloaded everything and began editing it into a comprehensive timeline. Nothing explicit. I wasn't interested in revenge porn, but clear, undeniable evidence of infidelity that would hold up in any divorce court. Then I started making copies. Lots of copies. The first package went to Patricia Keaton with a note. "Your husband has been having an affair with my wife for 3 months. Here's the proof. I thought you deserved to know the truth." The second package went to Lisa Chen at HR, along with a detailed breakdown of company resources that had been used to facilitate the affair: company cars for personal trips, business credit cards for romantic dinners, and office time spent on personal communications. The third package went to Nora's parents. That last one was perhaps the cruelest thing I did, but it was also necessary. Nora's mother had always treated me like I wasn't good enough for her daughter, like Nora was settling by marrying a blue-collar electrician instead of holding out for a doctor or lawyer. Her father was a retired bank president who had never missed an opportunity to offer unsolicited advice about my career choices. They were going to find out exactly what their precious daughter had been doing with her Harvard-educated supervisor. The packages were delivered on a Friday. By Monday morning, Nora's world was collapsing. She came home from work that day looking like she'd been hit by a truck. "How was your day?" I asked, not looking up from the newspaper. "Terrible. Lisa Chen suspended me pending a full investigation into my conduct with Darren. Apparently someone provided her with detailed documentation of our working relationship." That sounds serious. It's career suicide is what it is. Even if they don't fire me, my reputation is destroyed. No one will ever take me seriously again. She was pacing again, but this time there was desperation in her movements. And it gets worse. Darren's wife showed up at the office today, made a scene in the lobby, screaming about affairs and lies. Security had to escort her out. Yikes. My parents called too. Someone sent them materials about my personal life. My mother was crying. My father hung up on me. I folded the newspaper and looked at her with what I hoped was an expression of concerned confusion. "Nora, what exactly is going on here? What materials? What personal life issues?" She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her trying to decide how much to tell me. "Someone's been following me, taking pictures, building some kind of case against me." "Following you? That's terrifying. Have you called the police?" "And tell them what? That someone documented me having an affair with my boss? That's not illegal, Colin. Stupid, maybe, but not illegal." There it was. Finally. The admission I'd been waiting for. "You had an affair?" The words came out exactly right. Shocked, hurt, betrayed. I'd been practicing that reaction for weeks. Nora's face crumpled. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It just developed. Darren and I work so closely together, and you and I have been growing apart, and how long? 3 months. Maybe 4. 4 months. I let the number hang in the air between us. 4 months of lying to me. 4 months of sneaking around. 4 months of making me feel like I was going crazy for being suspicious. Colin, I'm sorry. I know how this looks, but how it looks. Nora, you've been screwing another man for 4 months and using our money to pay for hotel rooms. How exactly is that supposed to look? She was crying now, big tears that probably would have moved me 6 months ago. Now they just looked like another manipulation. I was going to tell you. I was trying to figure out how to handle the situation without hurting anyone. Without hurting anyone? What do you think the last 4 months have been for me? What do you think it's been like wondering why my wife suddenly needed new lingerie and expensive perfume? Why she was working late every night but never seemed tired? Why she flinched when I tried to touch her? I never meant to hurt you. But you did. Every single day. Every lie. Every excuse. Every time you came home from being with him and pretended to care about my day. I stood up and walked to the kitchen window, looking out at Mrs. Donnelly's house. Her kitchen light was on, and I could see her silhouette moving around, probably preparing dinner for one and watching the neighborhood drama unfold. The worst part, I said without turning around, is that you made me doubt myself. I knew something was wrong, but every time I tried to bring it up, you made me feel like I was being paranoid or controlling. You gaslit me for months. I didn't mean to. Yes, you did. That's exactly what you meant to do. You wanted to keep me confused and compliant while you figured out your exit strategy. I turned back to face her. So what's the plan, Nora? Are you leaving me for Darren? Is that what this has all been leading up to? She was sobbing now, mascara running down her cheeks, looking nothing like the polished professional who'd been lying to me for months. I don't know. Everything's so complicated now. Darren's marriage is falling apart. My career is destroyed. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Here's what you're going to do, I said, my voice calm and steady. You're going to pack a bag and leave. Tonight. You can stay at a hotel or with friends or wherever you want, but you're not staying here. Colin, please. Can't we talk about this? Can't we try to work things out? Work things out? Nora, you've been living a double life for months. You've lied to me, betrayed me, and humiliated me. What exactly is there to work out? We've been married for 15 years. That has to count for something. It did count for something. It counted for loyalty and trust and commitment. But you threw all of that away the first time you kissed another man. She was begging now, promising to end the affair, to go to counseling, to do whatever it took to save our marriage. But I could see the calculation behind her tears. She wasn't sorry about the affair. She was sorry about getting caught. It's too late, Nora. Way too late. She packed a bag and left that night, and I sat in my workshop until dawn, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. But I wasn't done yet. There was still one more move to make. The Founders' Day Festival was Millbrook's biggest event of the year, a weekend celebration that brought together everyone in town for food, music, and the kind of small-town socializing that made gossip spread faster than wildfire. This year, it was being held in the town square, with a large stage for performances and a giant screen for community announcements. I volunteered to help with the audio-visual setup. As the head electrician for the event, I had complete access to all the electronic systems, including the computer that controlled the main display screen. It was a simple matter to load a USB drive with a video file and set it to play at a specific time. The video was a carefully edited compilation of security footage from the Ocean View Hotel, showing Nora and Darren's affair in chronological order. Nothing explicit or pornographic, just clear, undeniable evidence of their relationship playing out over 3 months. Arrivals, departures, intimate conversations, passionate embraces in the parking lot. I'd set it to play during the evening program, right after the mayor's speech and before the fireworks show, when the entire town would be gathered in front of the screen. The festival started at noon on Saturday. By 2 o'clock, the square was packed with families, teenagers, elderly couples, and everyone in between. I worked the crowd, making sure all the technical equipment was running smoothly, greeting neighbors and acquaintances with the kind of friendly small talk that had been my social currency for 15 years. Around 4, I saw Nora arrive with Sheila Morrison and a few other women from her office. She looked terrible, hollow-eyed and thin, like she hadn't been sleeping or eating properly. Word of her suspension had spread through the local professional community, and I could see people whispering and pointing as she walked by. Darren was there too, with his wife Patricia and their 2 young children. Patricia looked like a woman barely holding herself together, smiling for the kids while her eyes remained cold and distant. Darren kept checking his phone and glancing around nervously, like he was expecting trouble. He was right to be nervous. At 7:30, Mayor Johnson took the stage to deliver his annual speech about community values and civic pride. I was standing near the AV control booth, my hand on the USB drive in my pocket, waiting for the right moment. Millbrook has always been a town built on trust, the mayor was saying. Trust between neighbors, trust between friends, trust between families. It's that trust that makes us strong, that makes us a real community, instead of just a collection of houses. The irony was beautiful. Johnson finished his speech to polite applause, and the screen went dark for a moment before the scheduled community slideshow was supposed to begin. Instead, my video started playing. The first few seconds were innocuous enough, just surveillance footage of a hotel lobby. But then Nora and Darren appeared on screen, and a murmur went through the crowd as people recognized them. The murmur became a buzz as the video continued, showing the couple's increasingly intimate behavior over the course of several visits. By the time it reached the footage of them kissing passionately in the parking lot, the crowd had gone completely silent. I watched Nora's face as she realized what was happening. Horror, then panic, then a desperate look around the crowd as if searching for an escape route. But there was nowhere to run. Everyone in town was watching her affair play out in high definition on a 20-foot screen. Darren tried to push through the crowd toward the control booth, but Mike Patterson stepped in front of him. My old friend might have been angry with me, but he wasn't going to let some corporate pretty boy cause a scene at a public event. "Let it play," Mike said quietly. The video ran for exactly 5 minutes, long enough to establish the timeline and scope of the affair, but not so long that it became gratuitous. When it ended, the screen went black, and the square was silent. Then, Patricia Keaton stepped forward. "Thank you," she said, her voice carrying clearly in the stillness. "Thank you for showing everyone who my husband really is." She turned to Darren, who was standing frozen like a deer in headlights. "We're done," she said simply. "Don't come home tonight. Don't come home ever." She took her children's hands and walked away, her head held high, while Darren stood there looking like his world had just ended. Which it had. Nora tried to approach me, pushing through the crowd with tears streaming down her face. "How could you do this?" she screamed. "How could you humiliate me like this in front of everyone?" "Humiliate you?" I kept my voice calm and level. "Nora, I didn't humiliate you. You humiliated yourself. I just made sure everyone could see it. You destroyed my life." "No, you destroyed your life. You destroyed our marriage, your career, and your reputation. I just documented it." She was hysterical now, screaming accusations and threats while the entire town watched. It was the final, perfect capstone to her downfall. A public meltdown that confirmed everything the video had revealed about her character. Security, including Mike, eventually escorted her out of the square, but not before everyone had gotten a good long look at the woman who had betrayed her husband and broken up another family for the sake of a corporate affair. I stayed for the fireworks show. They were beautiful. The next morning, I was having coffee in my kitchen when Mrs. Donnelly knocked on the door. "Colin, dear, I wanted to check on you after last night." "I'm fine, Mrs. Donnelly. Thank you for asking." "That must have been so difficult for you, finding out about Nora's activities." "It was. But I'm glad the truth finally came out." She nodded approvingly. "Truth has a way of surfacing, doesn't it? No matter how deep people try to bury it." "Yes, it does." "Will you be all right on your own?" I looked around the kitchen, my kitchen, in my house, finally free of lies and deception and the constant tension of living with someone who didn't respect me. "Mrs. Donnelly, I'm going to be just fine." And I was. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Nora got half the house value and her car. I got everything else, including documentation that she'd used marital funds to support her affair. She moved to Portland and took a job with a smaller firm at significantly lower pay. Darren lost his job, his marriage, and his reputation. Last I heard, he was working for a consulting firm in Boston and living in a studio apartment. Patricia Keaton got a very favorable divorce settlement and started her own business. We ran into each other at the grocery store a few months later, and she thanked me again for exposing the truth. My old friends from McCarthy's tried to reconcile, but the damage was done. They'd chosen to defend my wife's lies instead of supporting me, and that wasn't something I could forget or forgive. But I made new friends. Better friends. People who understood that loyalty means something, that trust is earned, and that actions have consequences. I kept the house, expanded my business, and learned to enjoy the peace that comes from living an honest life surrounded by honest people. Nora's promotion was over. Her affair was over. Her marriage was over. Her comfortable life of lies and manipulation was over. And my new life, the life of a man who refused to be taken for granted, was just beginning.